Okay, so to start off with, here is a task that just checks your knowledge about minority influence. So there are two answers to this question, which are B and E. Okay, so the last part of the specification here is to look at the role of social influence processes in social change. So to understand what's meant by social change and conversion, and to apply this to a real life example. So social change is the process by which society changes their beliefs, attitudes and behaviour to create new social norms. And we need to be able to link social change into social influence. So it's about how majority and minority influence affect or explain social change. So on the screen now are some examples of minorities who have had or have tried to cause social change, and it's worth looking at these and having a think about what they tried to do and how they tried to do it. So in terms of the role of social influence, these processes in social change, so social change occurs when societies as a whole adopt new attitudes, beliefs and behaviours. With majorities, it occurs through normative and informational social influence. This process occurs continually, but at a gradual pace, with minority influence being the main driving force for social change. And there are certain steps that help to explain how a minority can create social change. So they will draw attention to their issue, so they will highlight a concern or something that's bothering them. They will then demonstrate a consistency of their position. They will then try to elicit deeper processing within people or create cognitive conflict. So that's to get people thinking about what's going on and whether what they're currently thinking is the correct thing. You then have the effect of the augmentation principle, which is minorities taking a risk or being willing to suffer in order to further their cause. This can create the snowball effect, which is where over time people gradually move from a minority to a majority viewpoint. And then you get social crypto-amnesia occurring, which is where people forget that the idea came from a minority in the first place. Research has demonstrated that behavioural choices are related to group norms and they're subject to NSI. The social norms approach says that if people perceive something to be the norm, they tend to alter their behaviour to fit in with that norm, so they demonstrate NSI. So behaviour, therefore, is based more on what people think others believe rather than what they really think. So if an individual is exposed to a persuasive argument from a minority under certain conditions, they may change their views to match. This is a process called conversion, and it's vital for social change. And this happens in 5 stages, and you can make notes on this in your booklet. So the first stage is drawing attention to your issue. The second is to create cognitive conflict. Third is to maintain a consistency of position. The fourth is the augmentation principle, or the ability to suffer. Fifth is the snowball effect. If you do sociology, please don't get this muddled up to a sociological definition. And then you can use the suffragettes as a real life case study. So there's details on this in your booklet. So what we've looked at in our conformity research is that dissenters make social change more likely, and that was demonstrated in Ash's study. And that majority influence and normative social influence will encourage social change. So social change is encouraged by drawing attention to the majority's behaviour. In terms of obedience research, we've looked at the fact that disobedient models make social change more likely. So you can look at a Milgram variation, and the gradual commitment leads to drift. So there is a concept called gradual commitment, where once people start to obey in a small way, they will then lead to greater changes in behaviour. So, for example, in Milgram's study, giving 15 volts to start off with instead of 450 volts. Zimbardo argues that in terms of social change, people drift into a new type of behaviour by kind of moving incrementally, kind of small bits at a time. So on page 56, there is some evaluation for this. And there's an example of a top and a tail for an evaluation paragraph on this slide. This is a 6-mark exam question. And this is the mark scheme to the question. Also some ideas on the left as to how you might answer the question. And this is a potential answer to that question. On page 58, there's another 4-mark question. And there is the mark scheme for that question. And a 16-mark question on outline and evaluate the role of social influence processes in social change.